Okay, we're back again for this week's live stream. Welcome. This week we are going to be talking about forgiveness. I'm with Ned and Kelly Vandiver, who you've probably met before, but if not, they are coaches who work alongside me in the Couples Cure. And each week we tackle a topic that gets in the way of a healthy marriage. And what we have this week is forgiveness and what most people get wrong about forgiveness, because we all know that a lot of times relationships go south because there's resentment and we hold grudges, or there could be a really significant transgression that we haven't healed from, like an infidelity or a huge betrayal that's very traumatic that we're struggling with, or it could be lots of micro transgressions or betrayals over time, right? Emotional betrayals. And so what we want to talk about is how to really embrace what forgiveness is, but a big part of that is knowing what it's not, because there are some common misconceptions around forgiveness. There's actually more than 5, but today we're going to tackle like 5, I think, at least. And if you guys have some more you want to chime in with, we'll go with that. But just to help clarify around, if you are going down the wrong path, if you find yourself struggling with, how do I forgive my spouse for this one thing, or I keep using this against them, and we talked about resentment once before. But if you set your intention to forgive, but it's still on your mind, you still want to talk about it, maybe your spouse doesn't want to talk about it, and you're just trying to get your head around, how do I do this actually? How? Because I want to, but I can't. Then this is for you. So what we're going to do is get into what are the common misconceptions around forgiveness. We're going to talk about what it really is, and then we're going to talk about what you can do to get that process going if you haven't already started. So the first thing I want to bring up, and I see this all the time, and this was an important point that was posted by one of our clients around the topic of forgiveness and boundaries. Because a lot of times I think we think that if we're going to forgive someone, especially for something that they do repeatedly, if there's chronic like behaviors, characterological stuff, or if there's been a pattern, how do I forgive that person? Because forgiveness might mean then I don't have any boundaries. Like then I'm just accepting what they're doing if I'm forgiving them, right? And I think that's such a common myth, is that if you forgive somebody, that you don't actually have boundaries.
Right.
Have you guys seen that come up with your clients?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I've even had clients whose partners have been blatantly like cheaters, like multiple times, have ended up like leaving them for another partner. And I start talking to them about this spiritual principle of forgiveness, because once you get this principle, it's life-changing, but most people don't really know what it really is. And when I talk to them about, look, you've got to start practicing forgiveness, they think they have this misconception in their mind that it's something that it's not. And I've even had clients say, well, if I forgive him, then I'll love him again. Like I'll want him back then. And it's not what people think that it is.
Yeah. Yes, that's so true. And that's one of the other myths about the forgiveness, is that you have to be able to forgive, or that you have to, in order to love the person, you have to forgive them. Like you can love them without forgiving them, and you can forgive them and still come in and out of love. But if you hang on to unforgiveness, you're blocking the opportunities for love in the moment, because it's really just an energy that you tune into, that's always there. And it's just a matter of, what are you focusing on?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. I think that some people think, well, also, if they want to love their spouse and they feel like they can't love them if they haven't forgiven them, that's the flip side.
Yeah.
Because we've got people that they want to keep loving the person, but they haven't forgiven them and they're not sure how to get their head around that. Or they want to forgive, but they don't want to love them.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest...
Right.
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception, though, is, who the forgiveness is for.
Yes, thank you.
Truly.
We're going to get to that.
I mean, we're going to get to that. So
yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
But it's interesting. It's I wasn't brought up in the church, but I did. My first husband was like a pastor. Okay. Can you even imagine? pastor's wife. No, you can't. It just doesn't work. Okay. So, and it didn't. Okay. So, and so I was involved in the church for a number of years, you know what I mean? And so I got to listen to the way forgiveness was taught, and it was just taught as like these words that you say, you know what I mean? And an act or a thing that you do, and that's not what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree, 100%. And we're going to get into what forgiveness actually is. But I want to just kind of go through these bullet points. Number one, forgiveness does not mean that you don't still have boundaries.
Correct.
You also, there's a myth that you have to forgive it all in order to love the person. Okay. Love and forgiveness are two separate things, although forgiveness helps you access love. So deciding to forgive actually does open the gateway for love, but that doesn't mean you're condoning, right, what's occurred.
Right.
And that's the second thing that I was going to bring up, which is, or now it's the third actually, that if you forgive your spouse, that means you're saying it's okay or that you condone what they've done. Right. So you don't forgive them because you don't want to give them the idea that it's fine or that it's over somehow or that it didn't impact you. It's not a pass. Forgiveness is not a pass. It doesn't mean you're saying, hey, it's okay that you did that.
Right.
And when we talk about forgiveness with clients, don't you find that they feel like when you talk about forgiveness, they'll think that what that means is, oh, well, then that's just like saying, let it go.
Right.
That's not true.
And a lot of times they think it means, oh, if I forgive a person, well, then now, and I'm not even talking about like a spouse. It might be an ex-partner. It might be a family member that's toxic, who's hurt you, who's abused you. And some people think, oh, forgiveness means then I have to be around them again and all of that kind of thing. And that's not what it means. A lot of times when people have hurt you over and over again, it's best that you cut them off and forgive and love from a distance. I've had to do that in my own life with friends, with family members. So it doesn't mean you have to be around them.
Right. Exactly. Just to protect your own safety and energy and for that of your family.
Right.
Because ultimately, like you were alluding to, Ned, forgiveness is really just about, it's for you. It's for love in general, but that doesn't mean accepting toxicity. Like that's not what love means.
Right. And I also think that the misconception is that you actually have to speak to a person and say, I forgive you.
Yeah, that's
not
true. Closure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the bigger part of the misconception is, like Kelly was saying, it's this thing you say to people so that they can see that, you know, I am forgiving you. And that's, you know, again, we're going to allude to what it really means, but I think a lot of people act from that place of wanting people to know that they have forgiven them. And I think that's the part that creates the fear with a lot of people around, you know, saying it to a person and then feeling like, oh, this is a past and this is going to, you know, they may do this again because I'm showing up in this way. I'm being the bigger person and I'm dealing with a child at this point who's just going to take this and run with it, you know. So we're going to talk about this again, but I think it's not necessary to forgive a person and acknowledge to that person that you forgive them. And I know we're talking about variances around forgiveness with family members and your partner and various situations, but I just wanted to make that key
especially
point.
Ex,
yeah, that it's just not about you saying these words to this person. It's not necessary. You know, we're going to get to that.
Right. And that actually reminds me of the myth that you have to hear sorry from the other person before you can forgive them. So we don't have to speak to them and they don't have to speak to us.
Right.
Forgive people even if they haven't atoned for it. Because it's not about them. It's about releasing yourself and not bringing that into your future.
Exactly.
It's like cleansing for yourself, really.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. And a lot of people do themselves so much harm because they feel like they need an apology from the other person in order to forgive them. That's BS. And you're a lot of times not going to get the apology that you're waiting for. You're going to be waiting for your whole life, honey. You know what I mean?
Even if they're not sorry. I saw that one time on thing on Facebook. And that's really powerful. Even if they're not sorry, even if they don't even understand, you can still forgive them for your own sake, especially if it's an ex or a family member that you're not in contact with anymore. It's a lot harder, I think, when you're living with someone that you're trying to forgive.
Right.
But that's the other thing. The other misnomer is that you have to, in order to forgive, you have to forget. People think that, oh, if I forgive them, then that means I should never think about it again, or that I never need to talk about it again, or that I never should communicate the impact that it had on me ever again. So if you're struggling with forgiveness, let's say with your spouse, maybe you've had the experience where you want to talk about it and you really just want to share so that they can understand and so that you can feel closer and so that you can heal. And they're like, I thought you forgave me. Why are we talking about this? I don't want to talk about this anymore. Let's move on. And I don't think it's true. When you can forgive without forgetting, and that's part of the boundaries piece. And it's not possible to forget something that's really been hurtful.
No.
Because forgiveness is an ongoing conscious choice.
Mm-hmm.
But like betrayal, and real betrayal is a trauma that's embedded in the body that you can't forget. It will come up from flashbacks, dreams, triggers, things like that become physiological. So that's just not even possible. So I just want to take that off the table so people don't feel stressed out and put pressure on, like, I guess I must not have forgiven somebody if I'm still even thinking about it at all.
Yeah. And the misconception that, once you forgive someone, then that's it. Like you said, Monika, it's an ongoing, it's a daily choice. Sometimes it's minute to minute, depending on what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with. I know that with my ex-husband, for a long time, for many years, until I finally got forgiveness, I had to forgive him over and over and over and over and over again, consciously, because when it keeps on coming up, when the offenses keep happening, and you can't just rid your life of someone because you've got kids with them, you have to forgive over and over again.
Yes, it's a process. That was the other thing that I had on my list, is that a lot of people think that forgiveness is just like, it happens all at once. It's just an event. It's a decision. And then once you've done it and you feel it, that's it. It's over. But it's not. It's actually, and it's not something that happens at the end of a long process. It's actually something that happens at the beginning. You will be like releasing negative emotions around it over and over again. It's like a journey, like you were saying, Kelly, is a journey of feeling things and not allowing them to keep a filter on you, right? It's the conscious choice to release, like, I'm having these feelings about it, but I'm going to release them so they don't create a filter through which I see everything and like contaminate the rest of my life. And that's really just the peeling of the layers. And forgiveness, the experience, the emotional forgiveness and the peace that comes from forgiveness actually comes in waves. Right. So the other thing too, when we were talking about forgiving and forgetting, I think one specific way that this shows up is that people think that they can't forgive unless they've worked through all of the negative emotions that are surrounding that. And that's really part of that. It's a journey, is that you can forgive and be in the process of forgiveness and still be having negative emotions around it. That doesn't negate your choice to forgive and to live in the present moment and to not bring the past into your future.
And when you are in unforgiveness and resentment, that's the very thing that causes what's called parallel thinking, meaning one negative thought that brings on hundreds of other negative thoughts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It creates hundreds of other ones. So when you're not able to come into forgiveness and shift your thoughts and shift your focus of thinking onto something that makes you feel good, something around your goals, something you're wanting to accomplish, you're just going to start to go into a negative mind spin when you're in unforgiveness.
Yes, absolutely. Because thoughts attract like thoughts, and it like picks up speed. So it's that decision to say, I'm going to try to stop that when that starts.
Yeah.
And remember that I chose to forgive. It's really an act of remembering. So let's talk about what it is. What is forgiveness then? We're talking about what it isn't, but what is it? Like, how can we frame this?
I
in
love
the best possible way?
I said I love to talk about what it is.
Good.
Who are you going to define what it is?
Well, I have a few definitions of it, but I wanted to hear from you. The first thing that came to my mind as I was preparing for this was what it means to me is you're really just letting go. No, you're not letting go, but what you're doing is you're not allowing the past to determine your future decisions or agency or happiness.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
what forgiveness is for me.
Yeah.
And that it's for you, the greatest good of yourself and everyone that you love. So
Absolutely.
everyone that comes in contact with you is benefited. You know, it's not selfish. It actually has a ripple out effect when you are able to move into forgiveness. But what were you thinking about as you were embarking, as just from your own personal experiences, but also in working with clients that are working on this as well?
So when I first really got the principle of forgiveness the way that I understand it now, it really shifted everything for me in terms of really minding my thought life. Because when you're a person who's been abused, who's been hurt, who's been knocked down several times in your life, you tend to have a lens that is, hyper vigilant, hyper always looking out for, it's not a good lens to have. And you tend to have a pretty negative thought life if you're not really keeping it under control. And so, where I really learned about forgiveness is an awesome book, and I've mentioned it several times, called The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And he has a whole chapter on forgiveness in there. And that's when it really clicked for me. And I'd heard all of these things before, but for whatever reason, the way he said it, I got it. And what forgiveness means to me is it's this spiritual principle. It's this energy that I really practice staying in all of the time. And it's some version of whatever thoughts that I think about another person, whatever I speak onto another person, I am thinking and speaking unto myself. It's the boomerang effect. Anything I put out into the universe, it's going to come right back to me. And that's a law. It's the law of correspondence is what it's called. And so any seed that I put out there, that I plant, it's like the harvest that I'm going to reap, right? We've all heard these biblical principles. It's the law. And so when I understood that, I really shut off all the negative thoughts, all the negative speak around the people who've hurt me, because it can come up so often, and it'll just put you in these negative minds.
There's always going to be reminders. There's always going to be things that can activate that.
Triggers, trauma that lives in your body, things that, just remind you of not such great times in your life. But so when I understood that boomerang effect, I had to really shut it down. So now it's like anytime I have any negative thought about anyone who has hurt me in my past, when it comes to me, I forgive them, I release them, and I wish them well. I wish them abundance. I wish them peace. I wish them joy, because that is the only energy I want, coming towards myself and my family. So that's how I understand it.
Yeah, I love that.
Once you understand that what you're putting out is always going to come back to you, if you just understand that alone, you will stop speaking about other people and thinking about other people when you catch yourself doing it.
Yes, because we're on some level, we're all connected, right? So the specific actions and the specific person, you didn't like that hurt, but you're just really thinking on another level, because on one level that is true, and on another level that doesn't actually have any power over you now.
Right.
And so it's really a way of taking your power back. I think that's a way to define forgiveness. It's the choice to take your power back and say, that's not going, like, yes, it impacted me, but it's not going to determine my future.
Right.
And that's very, very powerful. I have a really wonderful quote from Marianne Williamson where she said, forgiveness is the choice to see people as they are now, to know what they did is not who they are. That it's like, these are actions that come from, our human conditioning, right? But on a deeper level, who we are is not that.
Right.
All of us are capable of things that are wrong, or all of us are capable of doing things that even we would think we're not capable of doing, but in the right circumstances we would be capable of doing.
Yeah.
And it's really the choice to look past the human conditioning and the implications of trauma and how that's impacted other people, who then have to traumatize other people, but be able to say, that's not who this person really is. On some level, there's like a deeper goodness in everyone, and it's just a willingness to focus on that, not specific to that person necessarily. That's not what you're talking about, Kelly. You're talking more just in general release. It's a choice not to focus on the bad.
Right.
Just know that what you put out, you're creating a new reality, and you're not going to just keep those lenses on that came from that, because otherwise you're just going to be expecting it to continue. And then you create that through your expectations.
And you're actually praying for it, because thoughts are your prayers. And whatever you pray for, you magnetize to yourself, whether you're praying for yourself or you're praying for another person by the negative words you speak or the negative thoughts you think about them. Those are your prayers.
So true.
Well, for me, it's personal, because I think the act of forgiveness starts with, it comes from a place of compassion, okay, first and foremost. And I think, again, we talked about misconceptions. It is for you, okay? But you can't forgive someone unless you know how to forgive yourself, okay? You can't speak something about someone or to someone unless you've learned how to do that for yourself. And so that's why I said it comes from a place of compassion, and the compassion turns to understanding. And that's how you can look at a person and go, this is not who they are. I know they don't want to be that way. Any good person wouldn't want to show up in this way, that they're treating me, so there's a level of understanding that comes with knowing how to forgive yourself first and foremost, so that you can forgive others also. And I think that's where a lot of people it can be confusing sometimes, when we're just so outwardly focused and we just make it about the person. It's really about you. And like Marianne Williamson said, she has a level of understanding of what true forgiveness is. Because if you want to live a life of fullness and happiness, and just joy, these things that people do that cause so much resentment for so many people, it's like water on your, you just kind of brush it off at some point once you reach a certain level of understanding, and because you want your life to be just joyful. That's all you want to focus on.
Right.
And so for me, that's the impact that forgiveness had for me.
Yeah.
Because I learned that, my biggest focus is I'm trying to be the most joyful person most of the time and most of the day. And that's the way I want to feel. So I'm not even thinking about, what someone says and how personal am I taking it. I'm more focused on what I want for me.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, it makes it so easy to forgive a person, because it's not about you.
Right.
It's not about you. It's about me and my happiness. So, that I want to make that point, though,
Absolutely. And what you said reminds me too of this concept of forgiveness as selective remembering, that you're really choosing what to remember, and that you're choosing to look beyond guilt or innocence.
Right.
And that goes for forgiving ourselves too. And I think I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's actually what I had written down for. There's a few things I wanted to raise. around how do we move into forgiveness? Like, what do we want to leave people with in terms of what to do? Like, we've talked about what forgiveness isn't, what the myths are, what it actually is, and what do we do to get there, right? And one of the things I had written was, you have to forgive yourself. And this has come up a lot recently, where we talk about a couple of clients of ours right now that are going through the resentment, the clearing resentments and forgiving injuries piece of things in the relationship, came to this where they brought spontaneously, it wasn't in the lesson, but spontaneously, I think it's been 3 people now who have said, when I really got it was when I realized I had to forgive myself first.
Yeah.
And that is such a big piece of it, is how can if I can forgive myself for whatever part you think you might have played. A lot of people think, especially if there's an infidelity, like, how could I be so stupid? How could I not notice this? Beating yourself up, you have to be able to forgive yourself for the things that certainly that you didn't play a part in, and the parts that you might have played a part in on some unconscious level, right? Forgiving yourself for the things you didn't know, because you can't know them until you do know them, and then you do, right?
Right.
Forgiving yourself for having the feelings that you have around it. Forgive yourself for not having been able to forgive yet. There's so many levels, but if whatever you can do for yourself is something you're going to be able to do for them.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's really the place to start.
And it's really why the unforgiveness is really why people continue to live in the same relationship for years and never get anywhere. Because like you said earlier, Monika, it's you're reliving the same day over and over again from a lens of the past, because how you go to bed ruminating and what you're thinking about is what you wake up to, and you're really blocking yourself from the things that you want in your life and your relationship at this point.
Yeah. And so if you can remember that if you are wanting to forgive and you look at forgiveness as it starts with forgiving yourself, but also setting your intention that if you could just set your intention, like what you're saying, Kelly, if you set your intention to enter the process of forgiveness and say, I am at least willing to start the process, that you recognize it as a tool for creating something new.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's a tool for turning the page. It's not a way of letting someone off the hook. It's not a way of saying it doesn't matter. It's not a way of glossing over anything. It's just a tool to say, I'm not going to create the same thing in the future by focusing on it so much.
Right.
You still have to set some boundaries and look at some changes and what changes do I need to make, right? And that's one of the other things I wanted to mention too, as a way to move into forgiveness is, this is something that can help you do that, is if you use any transgressions or betrayals or things that you're trying to forgive, if you look at what happened and you use it as a chance to clarify what your boundaries are from this moment on and what you yourself will do or not do to uphold them, then you can take control and you start to trust yourself. And if you can trust yourself, then it's easier to forgive, because like the past isn't going to repeat, because you're not going to let it. You're not going to allow any of those parts that you played before to happen again. Right. And so that's where you have to remember that it's not just about the spiritual aspect is so important, and moving into love and praying for the other person and that whole principle of surrendering it and what you put out comes back is strengthened by the boundaries of knowing, I know I don't have to worry about it, because I will know what it looks like and I will know what I'm going to do about it. And so in the meantime, I trust myself to take that action when the time comes.
Right.
And so in the meantime, I'm going to focus on staying in the present moment and releasing the past and creating, because the present moment is where we create the future.
Yeah. And there's a really great sequence of questions that I always ask myself too when I'm letting go of resentment and I'm, releasing the person and I'm forgiving the person. I use that, like you just said, Monika, as an opportunity to grow. And I ask myself a few questions. And the first question is, what is this trying to teach me? Like, what's the benefit of this? What is the mirror here? Yeah, what is the mirror here for me? Because we're all connected. And there's something that everything is trying to teach you, you've got to learn the lesson in this stuff. So what is the benefit?
Repeating.
Yeah. What is the benefit of this? What is this trying to teach me? And then the second, it's the second question I ask myself is kind of repeating, what is this trying to teach me? What skills or knowledge or experience am I gaining as a result of this?
Yes, that's a great question. I love that.
And
it shifts focus from feeling like there's nothing you can do about it to there is actually something that I can use this for. Putting yourself as the author of your experience.
Yes.
As opposed to,
absolutely
the experience. Yeah.
Totally. You're completely reframing it when you ask yourself these questions. And the third question that I always ask myself is, how is this going to make me a better person tomorrow than I was today or yesterday? You know, how is this making me a better person? Who am I going to be able to help and benefit from this? It takes the negative mind spin around whatever has happened and it turns it into a positive. There's always the opposite, right? For every situation. So those are the three questions that I ask myself.
So just say one more time, just so people can get that, what the three questions are.
Okay. So the first question is, what is the benefit of this? Or what is this teaching me? What is this trying to show me? And then the second question is, what skills or knowledge or experience am I gaining as a result of this? And then the third question is, how is this going to make me a better person tomorrow than I was today or yesterday? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Who can I be in greater service of tomorrow as a result of these experiences now?
Exactly.
Because we're building muscle. It increases empathy, especially for us in the coaching space and therapy. Like when we have experiences like this, they can always be gleaned to try to be more supportive of people going through something similar phase in that journey.
Yeah.
But even if you're not in that space, it's just so helpful to be able to become the author and not the object, and to take your power back and realize there is always something to learn from it. There always is.
Always.
Especially if you're asking yourself, if you ever ask yourself, why does this keep happening to me?
Oh, yeah. It's because you learned the lesson in it.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I think the other thing is, though, when we talk about this, when we interview, people, possible people to come into the program, is when we talk about a vision for your marriage. And what I understand when I think about unforgiveness and resentment, it becomes a barrier to your vision. It becomes a blocking, a wall to you actually attaining the vision that you want. And like you've been saying, rather than focusing on the negative aspect of what's going on, what building blocks can I take from this to propel me towards my goal for my relationship? And that's why it's so important to use this as an experience to see how you can become a better person and move you closer to your goal. So I think a lot of people really, we're talking about how people can use forgiveness in situations, and I'm bringing this up because stay focused on your goal. Okay, if you're talking about a healthy relationship and you're talking about loving your partner, you're not going to get weighed down by the negative aspects of things that happen so much. You want to be more focused on the positive things and what you want for your relationship. So practicing forgiveness is going to be it's just going to be a strategy that you need to learn how to use effectively, because stuff happens. I mean, it's always going to happen,
Totally.
Yeah, which is totally in line with the whole expanding the positive. What you focus on expands, and it's not about eliminating all of the negative. It's about having the ratio be such that the negative is far outweighed by the positive.
Totally.
Right.
So you don't have to clear out all the stuff before you can love your spouse again, or before you can have good experiences, or before you can connect. You don't have to forget the bad either, but you want to just really focus your mental attention to feed and grow all of the positive things that can come from staying in the moment which is really what forgiveness is just like we were talking about before, not letting the past in. And I have another good quote by Marianne Williamson that I want to end with today, which is perfect for what we were just saying, which is by bringing the past into the present, we create a future just like the past.
Mm-hmm.
By letting the past go, we make room for miracles.
Yeah.
And that is so true. Miracles can happen when you let the past go, and you can get there through forgiveness.
Totally.
So if you guys are thinking about this and it's something you want help with in your relationship, if you're struggling and you're like, I don't know how to integrate this, I've tried and I'm not able to do it, you're welcome to book a call with us to do a deep dive in your relationship and look at where the missing link is, what the barriers are to moving into forgiveness, and where that fits in with the larger context of your relationship, and then what the next steps would be for you. And then if that's something we can help you with, we'll let you know. And if it's something we can't help you with, we'll point you in the right direction or get you the resources that you need. Either way, all you have to do is just go to monikahoyt.com/talk, and I'll put that in the comments. And I wanted to let you know, if you know somebody that could benefit from this video, if you can, I think they have to be in the group or on my page if you tag them. But go ahead and tag them if you know somebody that could benefit from it. And if you have questions, please do answer or ask them and we will answer. It looks like actually Kristen has a question.
Yeah.
She asked you to type the questions out in the chat. That's a great idea. And they can see that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'll do that.
Okay, cool. Well, good. Thank you guys for joining me again today. Thank you all for tuning in, whether it's live or whether you're listening later. And I hope you guys have an awesome week, and we'll catch you at the next one. Have a good rest of the day.
Bye, guys.